Hey everybody, I thought I would show you a prototype because I think a lot of indie devs get discouraged by how bad their initial setup looks and plays. And I wanted to make sure they understand that that's normal. Your early game development is going to look like ass and play like ass. It's going to be terrible. And a big part of whether or not you can be a game dev is whether you can push through that phase of the game development. Here's a reasonable example. This is a very promising prototype that maybe I'll develop into a full game someday, but at this prototype stage, I can already tell that it's got a lot of promise, even though it looks and plays like ass. Let's take a look. What is this? Well, this is a game about building clockwork spaceships. All the parts move. So these are engines, and these are reactors. And the idea is that the reactor constantly spins, and it only outputs power to wherever it's spinning. So if you put it between the engines, then it'll like fire this engine, and then this engine, and then this engine, and this engine. It will end up wobbling the ship forward, and it won't be very nice, and everyone will throw up. So instead what I do is I set up the system to buffer it out so that it is synchronized. And the way I do that is I use a very simple mechanical setup. See? Very basic, right? And since they can only take power from one direction, how can you make it so that the setup ends up giving more power? Well, that's pretty simple too. What you do is you grab this and you just move it up and down. Now, obviously, in the full game, what you do is you do that via some kind of automation. But since this is a prototype, I haven't built that automation yet. However, since it already can be shown to work by just me moving it, I already know that that automation will be pretty easy to build. I can do more complicated tests. For example, here is me transitioning from a vertical to a horizontal shaft and then chaining along a complicated pattern just to see whether or not it would work. And the answer is, of course, that it does work. And I can already tell that I'll be able to do very complicated setups with this game system. And that's what I wanted to know. From here, I can start to develop things like, okay, well, I'll build the ship builder. I'll build the universe where the ship builder, the ship is in. I'll set up more elements. I'll put together 3D models. The path forward from here is very crisp and very easy to understand. But I needed to see whether or not the heart of the game had any merit. And it does. I can already see that there are things I need to be careful about. For example, we're going to have to be careful to allow for automatic propagation of timing elements so that nobody gets confused. We're probably going to have wires and stuff to make it a little bit simpler. But the whole point here is that by abusing the timing elements, we can allow advanced players to create more optimal ships. Whereas basic players don't have to. A basic player wouldn't use two engines. They'd use a reactor and one engine, and then there'd just be one engine, so it would never be wobbling. It would just be firing fine. Maybe they have three engines, but they all have their own reactor. And I can do much, much more aggressive optimization here. I can pull 4 beats. I can pull all 4 beats off of this reactor if I surrounded it with these units. And then maybe I'd have the units go up and down and ratchet around to get that piped straight into a tight phase-by-phase solution, rather than what I've got now, which is like every 4 or 8 phases. Still, I can see that path is forward. I can also see things like I could have crew, and the crew could be, could have the same setup. And so whenever the crew is facing their crew station, they give you a bonus, but they're doing the same kind of spinning as everything else. It wouldn't be animated as spinning, but they'd be animated as, not paying attention to the crew station. And I could have rooms like hallways and barracks and stuff, and they would do the same thing, but they would be grabbing people instead of power, and they'd be shuttling it around on a duty roster. So I can start to see how this sort of thing will develop. Lots of movement, spinning, ratcheting up and down, and all of these things can be hidden. I don't have to show all of the moving parts. I'll probably show the ones where they're moving up and down, but in the final game, you might not see this spinning except for when you're in game mode, because it's not really a physical spinning so much as it is a conceptual spinning. But what you get is a nice sound that is unique to your ship and tells you what's going on, even if you can't see the spinning. Of course, you can always open up, blueprint mode or whatever and see the spinning, but you don't want that to be distracting you while you're running around the game world. So you can see how this will easily create a unique and reliable sound that is your particular ship. Obviously, it would be optimized because you don't want to have 85 different audio sources playing basically the same things. But this is a good place to start. And this is what a good place to start looks like. It looks like crap. There's not even any real gameplay. I have to do all the gameplay through scene mode movement. And that's just how it is. So don't get discouraged if your games don't look great when you get started, or don't play great. And I know that there are some people that develop in different ways, and they might put in 400 beautiful art pieces right off the bat, but even then, everything that's not a beautiful art piece is going to be crap. That's how it works. You haven't built anything yet. So don't get discouraged. Keep trying. And if you build yourself into a corner, just take all that stuff you learned and start again, because it'll be 10 times faster the second time you do it. Have a good one.